plan. We love to preach about Joseph's story. What do people title all the time? From the pit to the palace.
To the palace.
And we love to celebrate because we're like, yeah, if I keep going through this stuff, that's where I'm going to get to. But I think we fail to imagine being Joseph.
Yes.
Like, you had this dream, you know where you're supposed to be, and you're literally locked up in jail. You're on the opposite side of where you believe you're supposed to be.
All right.
Not many of us keep believing when we're in that situation.
Speak to me, Lord. Speak to me.
We want Joseph's story, but it was an exemplary faith to say, I still believe where God said I will be.
Yes.
That I still believe in the salvation of my child while they're on crack.
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord.
That I still believe that when I saw my child as a toddler and they were going to be a preacher, but now they're hanging out with a bunch of people who are thug-like and they're partying. Do you still believe it?
Come on. Talk about it.
When you said God gave you a vision to do something for your community.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Come on.
But then you see everything going down.
Come on now.
And you see people moving into positions that shouldn't be there. And you see things going backwards. Do you still believe?
Come on now. I hear you, Lord.
And so this message of despair, if we can remind ourselves that in our despair, God is never in despair.
Hallelujah.
God doesn't get hopeless. God doesn't get shaken up. God doesn't see a situation and say, oh no, I don't know how I'm going to fix it now. I don't know how I could ever heal a person who's dead.
You better preach in here.
So then we have Jesus' response. Overhearing what they said, Jesus told him, don't be afraid. Just believe. Just believe. A couple things here. It helped me to see was like, why does Jesus always talking about people's fear? He doesn't always address. People were saying all kind of stupid stuff to Jesus all the time. Like, you really just read, like, they were just saying comments that didn't make sense, doing stuff that sometimes irritate him. But it was the fear that he always addressed, and he always acknowledged faith. And so I was looking at that and I said, well, first of all, how did he even know to address the fear? Because Jairus never said anything. There was the message from the people. They came in and they said, why bother the teacher anymore? And then Jesus immediately, that's all he heard in the conversation. Jairus even never even got a chance to respond. Jesus stepped in and said, don't be afraid, just believe. Because I believe God hears everything.
Teach.
Even our emotions.
Yes.
Even the thoughts that are getting ready to be in our mind.
Yes.
God hears it. He hears it coming up. He knows, okay, if I don't say anything, that's going to plant a seed. And you're not going to walk with me the rest of the way, and you're going to be scared. And so he cuts it off just as an emotion rising. The blood was just getting ready to boil inside of Jairus. And he said, don't be afraid. Just believe. In a simple command. Because those of us who work in psychology, you can't say too much to people when they get anxious.
That's right.
You can't do a whole lot of talking to get a person to come down.
Yes.
They got to be straightforward, and they got to be things they can just follow.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Don't be afraid, just believe. And so I believe he took that moment to just pull Jairus back in before the enemy. And we don't see the enemy, but I hear him. Before the enemy could pull him down. Okay? Because we see so many of the miracles where Jesus is telling. In fact, just before, daughter, your faith has healed you. So we see the role that maintaining this faith has. And then we would love to blame God after we let go of our faith. We would let go of our faith and stop believing and then not see anything happen and say, well, God, how could you let this happen? Or should God say, well, how could you stop believing?
Wow. Wow.
But we would like to place the blame on God if we drop the ball on our part. But God is so merciful here that he helps Jairus not to drop the ball. He helps him not to lose faith. How kind is that? How gracious is that? Because God is not, I feel like sometimes we paint this picture of God being ignorant to emotions and feelings. We think we're just supposed to push and tunnel our way through things and not feel anything. And, well, God don't care if you sad, suck it up. Or God don't care if you're going through this. Pull yourself together and just get through. No. God knows when you're dealing with fear, sadness, grief, all of these things.
Yes.
And it's the best one to help you manage it. So he says, just believe. And then he keeps on going. And so he did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. And I believe because this moment, it was getting really close to the miracle. And so it was getting very precious about who could be there. Because we already see the enemy influencing or attempting to. And so Jesus being aware of that, I felt like that's why he had to cut the circle down. Yeah. Like, I know you already got an edge of fear trying to come in, and I don't need anybody else messing it up. So it's just me, Peter, James, and John. And you, Jairus. Let's keep going. And so when they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion with people crying and wailing loudly. I said, wow, Mark, why use the word commotion? Like they thought she had died.
That's right. That's
they
right.
were mourning her. They were crying. But why commotion? And God told me, in difficult situations, don't confuse commotion with compassion. That sometimes people will stir up a lot of reactions to your pain, but it doesn't mean they're being compassionate.
Oh! Yeah, God.
That people can have a lot of words of it's gonna be all right and you gonna make it through.
You
and
better
preach. And I'm gonna be here when you need me. But sometimes it's a lot of commotion.
You better preach.
And no compassion.
You preaching.
Because Jairus didn't need them to cry right now. Jairus didn't need them to be wailing or mourning. And it's not to say that grieving is not a good. Grieving is a good thing, but it can be misplaced. You don't need someone to grieve your failure when God still says you can succeed.
Thank you.
You don't need someone to grieve your marriage when God says it can still succeed.
Hallelujah.
You don't need someone to grieve and say, I'm going to be here, when this all falls apart, I promise I got your back. Because that can make you get comfortable with saying, I'll accept this circumstance. It's not the same thing as being supportive, and it might be because we need to make sure we're on the same page with God when we offer our support to people. We don't want to be deterring people because we want to just seem like we're supportive. It was a lot of people there. Was a lot of people there for Jairus with the wrong mission.
Wow.
Jesus still had every intention of healing his daughter. And this is how we know it was the wrong people. He went in and said to them, why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep. Verse 40, but they laughed at him.
That's what they do.
That's how I knew they weren't supposed to be there.
That's
how
what
I
they
knew
do.
that they were the wrong people.
That's right.
And so I pray God open our eyes, and I have begun to see God do it as I get older. That when you say things that God has given you and people laugh, or people look at you sideways, or people think, you might be a little crazy on that one. They're not the right people.
Been there. Come on now.
It's almost God showing you, as He just does with these people in the moment, go ahead and put them out for this one.
Go ahead,
Go
God.
ahead and excuse them for this miracle, because they're not the right one
We
for
ready.
this situation.
Yes.
Because after He put them all out, He took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with Him, and He went in where the child was. Okay? He wasn't being mean. He wasn't being stuck up. He just knew these people were not right.
They couldn't
in
go.
this situation.
Come on.
And so He took her by the hand and said to her, Talitha cum, which means, little girl, I say to you, get up.
Teach.
Immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. At this, they were completely astonished. He gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this and told them to give her some continued. And so we see God bring into fruition something that shouldn't have been a surprise, because it's what He said from the beginning. And so we could put this in our mind that it's not that these things need to be a surprise to us. It's the things that come in between